What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on Rotogrinders. It will be the last Drive for Show, DFS for Dough for the 2021 calendar year. Golf takes the winter break through Thanksgiving and Christmas, so no golf tournaments for like 6 weeks, which is the only break we will get all year. So it always feels like more than 6 weeks when you're used to doing it every week. So we'll try to make this last one count here with the RSM Classic. Of course, I'm Justin Van Zuiden, aka STL Cardinals 84. I've got Derek Farnsworth, aka Notorious, alongside me. Noto, what's going on?
Yeah, not much. This always feels like the longest break of any major sport, even though it's the shortest break, just because, we love golf. It's once a week, so you can look forward to it. It's not a grind like some of the other sports are, like baseball and basketball. So yeah, I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna enjoy the break for about a week, I bet, and then I'll be itching to hopefully play. Is there any tour that's gonna be going on?
I'm sure I'm not sure if there's some Euro Tour events in there or not. I think they're doing the Hero World Challenge this year. That's
No
the first
Tiger
week of
though.
December.
Maybe Tiger will come back. It's the only thing that'll help.
15 golfers or so in that, but so yeah, that'll go the first week of December, and then we got nothing until the tournament champions, the first full week of January. But anyway, we'll see. I'll miss it too, unless this week is like last week, in which case my bankroll will thank me for the break. I had nothing last week. I had 0 6-6 lines. I think I did 75 lineups. I don't remember. It was so bad. I don't even remember. But 0 6-6 lineups. I think maybe 4 or 5 of 6 lineups. It was brutal. Just nowhere near the amount of made cuts needed. Jason Kokrak won. Great for him. I didn't have him. I didn't have him at all, but it didn't matter. So I was happy to see him win. But the crazy story that came out about Kokrak after the tournament was that he said on Tuesday he considered withdrawing from the tournament because he was hitting it so bad. And then he ended up winning it. Wins a full field PGA Tour event after seriously considering withdrawing in the middle of the tournament. I mean, we try to sit here and say this stuff's predictable, but he didn't even think he had any chance to make the cut, let alone win the tournament. So pretty weird stuff.
Yeah, that makes me feel better about my fade because I think my exact words last week were a perfect course fit for Kokrak, but he had lost off the tee in 6 or 7. He had lost on approach in 4 or 7, and nothing in his lead-in form would believe me to think that he would contend, let alone win. But golf's one of those crazy things. You can find some momentum, a long putt or hitting a good iron shot, whatever it may be. You find something and get that momentum rolling. So yeah, I think it was his 3rd win this calendar year. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, hard to believe that he found it that fast, and this is a pretty cool story. It's fun to see that with him talking about it after the event. Scheffler seemed to be the guy that most people wanted to win, whether for betting purposes or DFS on Sunday. He was pretty popular. Didn't necessarily play horribly, but Kokrak just went out there and won the tournament. It's a pretty tough course. We talked about that last week. Actually seeing a challenging event during the fall swing, which is pretty rare, where you got guys posting even par, 1 under par. Those are good rounds. So we'll probably get a switch back to the normal kind of more of a birdie fest event this week. But any other takeaways from last week's event for you?
Yeah, it's such a nice break to get a difficult course in the mix here in the fall swing. I really like the course. If your guy gets a birdie streak or a couple birdies in a row, you feel like it actually makes a difference. Some of these events, you're like, well, if I don't get birdie streaks from everyone, or if I don't get the under 70 bonus for all 4 of my or all 6 of my golfers, you're going to be in trouble, whatever it may be. So I like the more difficult courses. Typically, they are a little bit more predictable. We see the stronger tee to green guys get the job done on the more difficult courses. But yeah, overall, not a great week for me. Just continue my cold stretch of main slates. So hoping to get one back here before we hit the end of the season.
Hopefully we can do that and have a good week here as we send golf into the sunset for 2021. But RSM Classic this week, one of your, historical, they play this one at the end of end of every year. And so we've got plenty of course history to go off of. And so that should, this should be an event that a lot of people at least are able to crunch the numbers and try to figure out some guys that they like. And this is one of the rare events. We see it a lot in the kind of spring, March, February, March, where we're still dealing with relatively limited daylight hours, where these full field events utilize two different courses. So we have that this week with two courses in play for the first couple of rounds. Does that impact the way you want to build lineups here, depending on the weather? Or, we've got the Plantation course hosting one of the first two rounds before the cut, and the Seaside course hosting the other. Some guys will start, on one course on Thursday and then play the other Friday, and they'll flip flop. So, anything you do differently with two courses in the mix this week?
Not sure there's any actionable information we can take there. I remember last year there had been 6 straight winners that started on one of the courses, and then naturally that trend came to an end last year when golfer that started on the other course ended up winning. I would check the weather. I mean, I think there's a potential edge on Friday because it looks like it could be pretty windy in the afternoon, but I think that would affect golfers on both courses. So just getting the guys out early. For me, the only play there is going to be in Showdown. I do think you want to take advantage of the guys on the Plantation. Each of the first 2 rounds, because there are 4 par 5s, should be a little bit easier than the Seaside course.
Yeah, a lot of times we see differences come into play with light, but it's more so at like Pebble Beach or something where that course is pretty exposed. So if it gets really windy, you can often see, Pebble Beach play harder than some of the other courses that are, used in those multi-course. I can't remember them all off the top of my head now, but some of those events that use more than one course in the spring, a lot of times one of the courses is say more open and another one's more tree lined, where if it's going to be windier one day, you can take advantage of it. But here, both of these courses tend to play around 1 or 2 strokes under par. They're not really that different. They're both fairly short. With the main difference being that the Plantation course is a par 72, like Derek mentioned. But still, it's not like there's significant, differences in how the courses are designed from a feature perspective in terms of trees or water or whatnot. So, yeah, not much of an angle. But generally, most years, the Plantation course does play slightly easier. If you do want to take that angle in Showdown, I certainly don't mind. Then after the cut, anybody who makes the cut, then the field will obviously be small enough to where they can get everybody through on the same course. So for the weekend, the Seaside course will host. So that's the course where you'll have the shot tracker, 3 of the 4 rounds. The one round on the Plantation course, they usually just do the shot 2 from the fairway, shot 3 from the green or whatever. But that'll only be applicable for 1 round for each of your golfers. So
that's the downside in Showdown is if you play all the Plantation guys, you get no sweat equity with the shot tracker.
Yeah, so you got to play the other course just for that sweat equity. In general, on these 2 courses, what are the types of golfers you're looking at here?
Yeah, so the average driving distance here is about 10 yards shorter than your average course on the PGA Tour. So a lot of golfers aren't necessarily hitting a lot of drivers this week. The fairway is very easy to hit. The greens are very easy to hit. Scrambling is not overly difficult. It's kind of one of those plotters courses. You look at the guys with the best course history. You got like Webb Simpson, Matt Kuchar, those type of guys that just tend to play well on these shorter Bermuda tracks. They both feature Bermuda grass throughout. And yeah, I think accuracy is a little bit more important than distance. We've seen a lot of shorter hitters play well here over the years. Doesn't mean the longer hitters can't play well, but it kind of neutralizes the field in terms of off the tee. There are a lot of water hazards in play. So you do want to be playing from the fairways. You're going to have to make a lot of birdies. I think the winning score probably between 15 and 20 under par, just depending on, the wind over the last 3 days. Thursday looks like it's going to be pretty calm. And yeah, I think any experience on Bermuda courses is definitely going to be, helpful this week.
If you look at course history, we got a few guys who tend to play pretty well here. I believe Kevin Kisner is the all-time earnings leader. Webb Simpson has some consistently strong results here. And Robert Streb is the only 2-time winner of this tournament, including last year, where he beat Kisner. in a playoff. So Robert Streb, the only multi-time winner of the RSM Classic. Who knew? And he's back in the field this week trying to defend that title. But you look at the winners here over the last, say, 6 or 7 years. Streb, Tyler Duncan, Charles Howell, who, I mean, he always had a reputation for not being a winner. Always a guy who would finish in the top, 15, 20 and make a nice paycheck. But he was a winner here in 2018. Austin Cook, Mackenzie Hughes, Streb again, Chris Kirk, Tommy Gainey. I mean, it hasn't exactly been household names winning this tournament. So, and part of that, I guess, could be to the fact that we usually don't have a super strong field here. Last year we did because it was the week after the Masters. And so a lot of guys kind of just stuck around. But one of those events where you think it's a little unpredictable, but then on the same token, you got a lot of guys like Kisner and Simpson that have had consistently strong results here. So what do you make of the course history angle this week?
Yeah, I was just going to look at, because all those names you mentioned are really good putters, really good short games, with the exception of Tyler Duncan. But the week he won, he gained 3.4 strokes putting. So definitely wasn't, all ball striking. He's kind of known for his iron play. But yeah, so I think course history is going to be fine. You're going to hear the Sea Island Mafia talk a lot. There's a lot of golfers.
It's like half the golfers on tour, though.
Half the golfers, in this field either live here or have ties to the area. So, and if you look at their, some of their course history, it's not as good as you might expect with it being a home game for a lot of these golfers. So I'm not putting a ton of stock into that. Certainly doesn't hurt, but I wouldn't bump anybody up because they, have a house here. We've seen that backfire, time and time again at events at the PGA Tour. When you have a home game, it's just different when they set it up for, a PGA Tour event and, put some fans in there, changes the sight lines and all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm not putting too much stock into the Sea Island Mafia narrative, but I do think course history helps. I looked at Data Golf's, course history predictive power. It was pretty average. Like Augusta National is number one. It's pretty average for all the courses on the PGA Tour.
All right. Well, I think we got enough background there, and we can start digging into the golfers this week. Before we do that, be sure to check out one of the sponsors of the show, Prize Picks, and prizepicks.com, or you can download their app. A lot of times we provide some golf-specific picks on here. They don't have any golf posted for this week, so probably taking that off the board with this being the last week of the year. But if I open up Prize Picks right now, they've got second half NBA contest, full game NBA contest, second half college football, NFL, college hoops, college football, NHL, MMA, soccer. They've even got a couple of women's college hoops props on there. So you can do single stat DFS type scoring, or you can do overall fantasy points on the props. Sometimes when they offer golf, they offer driving distance, longest drive. Some of the NHL, they offer, goalie saves and shots on goal and things like that, rushing, receiving yards for football. So lots of different props you can get over-unders for on Prize Picks, and we hope you check them out. So prizepicks.com or download the app, and you can get, I believe we have a bonus code too. Trying to find that here so that I don't give out the wrong one. Don't want to give out the wrong
Wiley
one.
would say grinders,
promo code grinders. That's what it is. 100% deposit bonus up to $100. So if you're a first time user and you sign up, promo code grinders, I'm not sure how I forgot that. You get the 100% bonus up to $100. So free money. All right, let's start digging into the golfers this week. We've got 5 above 10K. Scheffler, Webb Simpson, Louis Oosthuizen, who we haven't seen a lot lately, but never a bad thing to get some rest. And Webb Simpson hasn't played in about 4 weeks either. So a lot of these guys just giving it one last hurrah before the winter break. So Scheffler, Simpson, Oosthuizen, Cam Smith was one of the spectacular fails by me last week as part of my bad lineups. I guess he didn't do super bad, but he was there in my group of guys that seemingly underperformed the first couple of days. Ended up finishing better than I thought. And then Harris English at 10.1K, rounding out that 10K plus group. So Simpson almost always gets the noise here. It does surprise me a little bit that we've got Scheffler pegged at slightly higher ownership right now. We've got them both in kind of the mid-20s though. But your preference on Scheffler, Simpson, or any of those others above 10K? I think Scheffler and Simpson are a notch ahead for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting range for sure. You got two guys that have been playing a lot during the fall, and Scheffler and Cam Smith, and then you got three guys that we haven't seen a lot of in Webb, Usti, and Harris English, who had to withdraw. I think it was a back injury his last time out. English, I think he has a win here, or he's a Sea Island guy. I can't remember exactly, but his course history is all over the place. Louis miscut here last year in his only appearance. He's lost strokes putting in 4 straight events. So after being one of the better putters on the PGA Tour last season, he's been struggling with the flat stick. So I can't really go there. Cam Smith has never played here before, so I don't feel great about that, especially at this ownership. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I really like Webb. Anytime you get him on a short Bermuda track, I think he makes a lot of sense. He's a good putter, good with the irons, and the form hasn't been great. But I was looking at his stats over the last 24 rounds. He's still third in birdie or better percentage. He's just been making a lot of bogeys, and I think he can correct that at an event where he's got a lot of top 10 finishes. So he's going to be my favorite up here. Don't mind Scheffler. But it is weird not seeing anybody priced above 11K. I think it's going to lead to a lot of balanced lineups this week.
I think so. Yeah, you can fit one guy in here from the top and still build a pretty balanced lineup outside of that. So Webb is my favorite. Like you say, I just think that on a course that he likes, hasn't played in 4 weeks, should be rested, ready to go. I give Webb the edge over Scheffler, but I certainly like those two a lot better than Ustays and Smith or English right now when you factor in the circumstances with those other guys. So that's my thoughts. We're in agreement there on the 10K and above. When we get to the 9K range, we've got 6 or 7 options there, and even still not as many as you would expect with nobody above 11K. But really interesting if you look at the numbers. Like, I think Corey Connors' stats are always the same. Like, you can look at Corey Connors, the last 20 rounds, last 30 rounds, last 50 rounds, like all the time. Right now, I've got his last 50 rounds pulled up. Total strokes gained 10th, tee to green 5th, ball striking 2nd, off the tee 4th, approach 9th, around the green 130th, and putting 91st in this field. That's Connors to a tee. He's going to stripe it from tee to green, and he's not going to putt. So it's whether or not he can make enough of those 8 to 10 footers. When he does, he's got winning upside. When he doesn't, he's still probably going to finish 25th or 30th in these weaker field events. So you and I are both a sucker for the bad putters, and Connors is consistently there with the ball striking and not there with the putter. So, but then you gave the angle about 5 minutes ago that the guys that have won here traditionally have been good putters. So I don't know how that makes me feel about Connors, but I'm sucked into the bad putters, and I can't leave the year by going away from the roots. So I'm in on Connors.
Well, let me sell you a little bit on his putting. He's actually 45th in this field in strokes gained putting on Bermuda over the last 2 years. So much better than,
lots of bad putters in this field then.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But strokes gained putting total in this field, he's 88th. So that's a big jump up from, maybe it's some noise there putting on Bermuda, but it makes me feel a little bit better about him. He's played here 3 times. All 3 in the top 40, T10 last year. And I believe he just had a baby. So he's got some baby swag as well, if you want to play the narrative. So yeah, I like Connors quite a bit. I'll pair him up with a guy we'll get to in the 7Ks who has a very similar skill set. Henley, I like Henley. It's hard not to. Very accurate off the tee. Best iron player in the field. Another guy that's better putter on Bermuda than any other surface. But he's going to be pretty popular. The names that are interesting to me, Taylor Gooch, he was extremely popular last week. I think he had the first round lead and then kind of fell apart. Doesn't seem like many want to play him, but everyone wants to play Kevin Kisner, even though he's been in terrible form since the win. So what are you doing with those two? We got a guy in really good form, and then we got a guy with the good course history.
I'm going to take the out and play neither.
Okay.
That's, Kisner has great course history. If you took Kisner's course history away and the Sea Island narrative and all that stuff, I know you can't do that, but just for a second, I'll humor myself. If you did, Kisner would be 2% owned at $9,200. But
guess where he is in my model? What number?
Let's see.
Which does include course history.
What's that?
It does include course history.
So that's obviously going to bump him up some, and he's 3-6. He's 8th in salary. I'll say I'll say 31st.
Ooh, real good guess. 33rd.
Oh man, 2 off. That's all right. That's on the Price is Right board. Yeah, I can't. And 16% owned.
Yeah.
He's got the course history going, but no recent results. And a lot of times we've seen that with him, where then he gets to a course he likes, and when he's playing this bad, I don't think it's just gonna flip a switch with the course history like some other golfers. So I'm out. I'm probably out on Gooch as well. I played him some last week, and again at 9,300, I like a lot of the other guys better. So I think I'm out on Kisner and Gooch. And look, I'll play Alex Noren over both of them.
Yeah.
Noren has finished top 20 here the last 2 years. He's had some decent results in the fall swing, and I know he doesn't play as much on the PGA Tour, but he's 7th in total strokes gained in this field over the last 50 rounds, and a lot of his has been with the putter. I mean, he's been running hot with the putter, but it's not like he's a generally bad putter like somebody like Connor. So Noren is the only guy we have above 9K in the single digits for ownership, and it's barely there, but surely Gooch and Kisner are going to be a little more popular. So give me Noren over both of those guys, I think.
I like Noren as well. I like the ownership angle. You mentioned the course history. And over the last couple of years, he's gotten really good at the easy courses. When when he first came on the PGA Tour, we thought of him as more of a hardcore specialist at the majors and that kind of thing. So really good track record on Bermuda as well, which I like. So I'll be on Noren with you. And then what are you doing with Adam Scott? I mean, he finally roped me back in last week, and then he lost 4 strokes on approach. His ball striking was terrible for like 18 months, and then he found something, and last week he lost it again. So I don't know what to do with Scott, especially since he's never played here.
Yeah, I'll probably end up keeping him in the GPP pool, mainly because I don't like a whole lot in the 8K range. So I mean, my player pool is getting thin in a hurry if I X out a lot of the 8K range. I'll take a chance on his upside. Like, to me, I think if you're making 30, 40, 50 lineups, you got to find your favorite of these veterans. Maybe it's Kisner for some people, or maybe it's Justin Rose at 8,800, or Scott or Keegan, who I don't mind. I think you got to keep a couple of those guys in your player pool, because I think they do have upside in this relatively weaker field event. So I'll keep Scott in there. But I really don't have a lot of conviction one way or the other on him. I just think, if he finds it and the ball striking is there, I think he's got more upside than a lot of the 8K players.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm going to be off of him because I'm burned from last week, but I get it.
Yeah, pretty neutral on the whole, but I think he'll end up in my player pool. Hopefully we don't get, by the way, last week was a little bit, my wife always asks me on Wednesday night, because my wife is an early riser, so she's up at like 4:30 every morning.
4:30?
Yeah. Why? I mean, like, our kids get up at 6 to get ready for school. But I mean, she stays home during the day, so I mean, she doesn't have to get ready super early or anything, but that's just her routine. She gets up at 4:30, I think goes to bed about 10 and gets up at 4:30. So anyway, every Wednesday night, I don't set an alarm or anything. She's like, what time you need to get up to make sure your golfers are playing?
Nice.
And so last week, I looked at the time. I'm like, oh man, it's like 5:45. Turns out I had the time zone wrong, because Houston's in the same time zone as us. So I woke up an hour early. And then they had a rain delay anyway. And then Charlie Hoffman withdrew 5 hours later anyhow. So
how did we not mention that? He was in my main lineup and my showdown lineup.
It was a bad day. It got the tournament off to a bad start. No wonder I didn't have any 6-6 lineups. And so after all that happened on Thursday, I said I would have been better off probably sleeping through lock. It didn't matter anyhow. But I have no idea. I was going somewhere with that. Now I've completely lost it. The Hoffman thing threw me way off.
How crappy is that though? Because like we were awake before it started, and then he withdraws after lock, so nothing.
There was somebody else that withdrew after lock too. It was like Sung You'll Know or somebody. And then Smalley replaced him. I think Smalley ended up finishing like 15th. And we'll talk about him in a little bit too. But anyway, yeah, that was part of what made last week brutal. The Hoffman withdraw after lock. So hopefully somebody like Adam Scott or Rose or somebody that I don't really love but end up keeping in my player pool. I really liked Hoffman last he plays well in Texas, and yeah, just disappointing that he did that, but that's okay. The first time I've been burned by one of those in a while. Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, everybody's got their horror stories of being burned by a withdraw. But that was the first one that had burned me in a while. All right, so let's move into the 8Ks. I know you talked about Keegan last time he teed it up and made the cut, and he ended up finishing like dead last of everybody that made the cut. But he was really popular a couple weeks ago. I think that was Mayakoba. And he was like 20% owned. And so recency bias now, and everybody that, got burned by him that week, nobody wants to play him again. So now we got him down at 7. I believe the lowest owned of any player we've talked about so far. So again, good ball striker, can't putt, so fits that narrative. So I don't mind going back to Keegan. His ball striking numbers are still pretty solid recently. And again, I don't love a lot else in the 8K range. So your thoughts on this kind of middle to upper 8Ks?
Yeah, I don't mind Keegan. If you did play him, at high ownership a couple weeks ago, you should go right back here. Again, that's going to be the putter that might hold him back, but he's one of those guys that's really good tee to green. He's a good ball striker and he's good around the green. So if it does get windy, I do think that'll, help him. If the scoring gets a little tougher, I think that'll help him. So I don't mind him at 89-100. I like Mackenzie Hughes a little bit. He won here as a rookie, and then since then, miscut, T65, miscut. So I do think that's going to help keep his ownership down. He's quietly made 11 straight cuts. He's a really good putter. Accuracy is a concern. Approach play is a concern, but he's pretty magical on and around the green. So a guy that I like playing on these shorter Bermuda tracks, like the subs 10% ownership. I think Brendan Todd's interesting, kind of the same type of player where you're just hoping to gain a lot of strokes on the greens, except he's a lot more accurate off the tee than Mackenzie Hughes. But these aren't guys that I feel great about, just that I would include in my, tournament player pool. The one guy that I feel, pretty good about in all formats is Chris Kirk. He's a cut maker. He's got a pretty good track record here. Doesn't really have a weakness in his game. He's pretty accurate, pretty good with the irons, pretty good around the green, pretty good putter. So I think, he makes some sense. And you said he won here before, right? I only have the last 5 years. And
who's that, Hughes?
Chris Kirk.
Oh, yeah, that was just beyond 5 years ago. Yeah, it was probably 6.
Yeah,
but yeah,
so
he did win here.
Got the course history, decent enough form, pretty good stats. I don't mind him. Oh, 20%. Wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I wasn't either when I put him in my article. It looks like we got it down to 17 now.
Okay.
It was 20 earlier, but 17 now. Yeah, I think maybe our original number on him was a bit hot, but in terms of ownership. But I mean, he's been consistently underpriced for a couple months now. And you look at his I mean, either sometimes he's just a disaster, but when he's on, he tends to show some upside, like he did with the win here. So I don't mind Kirk at 8,000. The ownership was a bit of a surprise to me as well. Seamus Power, another one of last week's disappointments. I don't even need to know how badly he missed the cut because I know he did. It was not pretty though, but his ownership down to 9% this week. I don't know. I don't love a lot in here. I like your call on Mito, another guy. He was in the player pool last week. I think he was. Where did he finish? Our player cards get the most.
T29. Not too bad.
I must have been thinking of 2 tournaments ago when it must have been. Yeah, it was Mayakoba. He's basically dead last. Just assumed he was dead last based on how all the other guys did last week. I don't mind Mito, but I like him every week. He's always going to end up in my player pool, so I don't want my bias to come across on everybody, but I like him. I like the Hughes call too. He'll be in my player pool.
I'm surprised Joel Damon's getting so much, traction.
Wonder what's causing that. You got his course history handy?
I mean, he's played here each of the last 5 years. Best finish T37, 2 missed cuts in there.
Yeah, I'm probably out on that at that salary. It's just a little expensive. I mean, it's all a little bit relative because
he gained 8 strokes on approach last week. That's what it was.
Where'd he end up finishing last week?
5th.
He's part of that group. It got pretty bunched together there at the top. I don't know, decent argument for him, but I'm probably still out. All right. Let's move into the 7Ks here. Kuchar, if you want to play the Grizzle veteran angle, you got Kuchar, you got Howell, you got Harmon. all those guys up in the top end of the 7Ks. None have really shown much, if any, upside of late, but Harmon did finally make a cut last week, so that's positive. And Howell has a past win here. Then you're down to Lee, Rogers, Streelman, Matt Wallace, Jason Day. Pretty much a dead range from, say, 75, 70, from 7,600 to 7,900. Yes, you could play somebody in here, but I don't love anybody.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was making, my main lineup today, just looking through different options, and I had 78.50 left for 2 spots, and I scrolled right to that range with Kuchar, Harmon, Howell, and I mean, it's tempting. This is the type of course where they should play well. Kuchar's a Sea Island guy, Harmon's a Sea Island guy. Howell's won here before, but yeah, like you mentioned, they just haven't shown any upside recently. So I don't think I'll go there. I don't hate them. But I just don't know what they're doing right now. I mean, Harmon's lost on approach in 7 straight. Kuchar, we haven't seen a top 10 out of him for I don't even know how long. And then, Howell, he's been out of form for a couple of years now. So yeah, it's tough there. I don't really love anyone else above 7,500. Strillman rates out well for me, but he's kind of been in that same no upside type of form recently.
Maybe Harmon's gonna follow the Kokrak approach, losing on approach in a bunch of events, and then he's just gonna come out and find it this week.
If he says he's thinking about withdrawing, we're locking him.
We're locking him in. All right. Who knows? He might end up staying in my player pool.
He was the most consistent guy on tour for like 8 months, and then
weird. That's wild. I'm always a sucker for Matt Wallace at 2% ownership too, so might keep him in there. The guy
I like that.
The guy I think is interesting. What are we doing with Strub? Two-time champ.
Let's see. He is 96th in my model. The worst. The worst plus minus of anyone in the field.
All right, he's out. 4%. I think he'll be over 4% owned though. I don't mind Adam Long as a tournament flyer. I was looking at his logs earlier. The last 15 starts for Adam Long, 7 missed cuts and 8 top 30s. Every cut he's made has been a top 30, 29th or better, and 7 missed cuts. And he's actually got 3 top 15s in a row. So he has started to show a little bit more consistency. He's had some decent results here, 30th and 35th the last 2 years. So it's a pretty weak field. Adam Long at 7,500 and 5% ownership. I'll play some of him.
I'm in. I like it.
What are we doing with Luke List this week? He was a really popular play last week on a course that catered to more distance, and his tee to green numbers are great lately. But what about this course?
Yeah, I mean, he was the best guy in my lineup last week, which, T11's fine, but just says more about the rest of my lineup. And I think he was like 6,900 too. So he gets a big price bump. He gets an ownership bump as well. My issue with him is he's like dead last in putting on Bermuda. So it's hard for me to go there, but he did lead the field in strokes gained tee to green. He gained 13 strokes on the field last week. So, I mean, there's a case to be made for him for sure.
Yeah, he's pretty locked in from tee to green right now. He'll probably end up staying in my player pool. I just can't ignore those tee to green numbers in a weak field. So I'll probably play some, though I am a little bit more nervous about him this week than I was last week. Who else you like in the kind of middle as we get towards the bottom part of the 7Ks?
I'm going to go back to Emiliano Grillo. He's a guy that's very good total driver, one of the better iron players in the field, one of the better when it comes to, green and regulation as well. And I mentioned at the top of the show, I don't think around the green is going to have that big of an impact this week because everyone's going to be hitting the greens. If that's the case, I think that's going to be a big help for him. He's just been bleeding strokes around the green. So if he can hit, 80 to 85% of greens, I think he's going to be in pretty good shape. His putting isn't as bad, especially on Bermuda, as you might expect. He's about, middle of the pack in this field. T18 here last year. If he was in better form, he would be a lot more popular. So I like him at 7,400. I think Norlander's interesting. 4 for 4 here in the last 5 years, a couple top fives. He's a guy that tends to play his best on Bermuda. And then, yeah, you take over and I'll come back with a couple others.
Yeah, Norlander, I put that in our survey this week that most will focus on the course history of guys like Kisner and Webb Simpson, but Norlander's got pretty good course history as well. So Keith Mitchell, I'm always a sucker for a little Keith Mitchell on these tracks. Obviously, he grew up in the area, one of the many. But his form has been improved and a little bit more consistent lately. He's still 7,200 on DraftKings, about 6% owned. So it's been a long time since I've endorsed my guy, Keith Mitchell. So we'll try to go out on a high note. So I like him. And then only other guy above 7K, Alex Smalley, I don't mind. Again, I mentioned he got in last week with the Sung You'll Know withdraw, but he wasn't available on the main slates. So nobody really paid attention to him. And he got another top 15 finish. So 4 straight made cuts. Don't mind him at 7,100. So Smalley, Keith Mitchell, maybe Taylor Moore will be in my player pool there.
Yeah, the model loves Alex Smalley every week, so I agree with that one. Kyle Stanley, so he finally gained strokes putting for the first time in months last week, and still missed the cut. So I don't understand what's going on with him. He usually gains 6 or 7 strokes on with his ball striking, but last week finally putted well and missed the cut. I like Denny McCarthy quite a bit at 7K. I think he's just too cheap. A couple top 15s in the last 2 weeks. He got an 8th place finish here. And we've seen him kind of string together good performances, at a time. He's a guy that's really good putter and not great with his irons long term, but he can find it for a few week stretch. So even at that 12% ownership, I think he's a pretty strong option.
Yeah, he's definitely underpriced at that salary, and especially if you want to play the putter angle this week, I don't mind McCarthy at all at 7K.
He's like Brendan Todd, just 1,400 cheaper.
There you go. All right, let's move into the 6Ks, where I think there's a few options here this week. Not a ton, but you got some of the recent Corn Ferry Tour grads. Ramey's in here at 6,900. Our boy Nick Hardy at 6,500. He was a colossal failure his last start, but like Hardy's all the way down to 6,500. He's only gonna be 2% owned, so he's the new Mito for me, and just gonna play him at that salary. So Hardy and Ramey, I think, are 2 guys that are interesting in this range, but anybody that pops in your model in the 6Ks or our random golfer of the week got to happen too.
Yeah, so the model loves Ramey and it loves Hardy. So I agree with you on those 2. For the rest of the range, I mean, I'm not loving a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to dip down below, Denny McCarthy in my main lineup. But we do got to talk about our boy Scotty G back in the field.
Scott Gachesky back in the field. We learned all about him a few weeks ago, and he made the cut and had a little Thursday, top 5 for a while. So what is he? Has he been salary this week? I know he's down there. Is he 6K?
6,100.
6,100. Got to pay a premium.
And coming off of a T39, I guess he dropped down there a little bit. But he was sitting in the top 10 for a little while in his last start.
I don't think I'm going to play him, but it's a cool story. And I suppose maybe there's not a lot in here. Does the model like anyone on a points per dollar basis in here? Anybody pop? In
the 6Ks?
Yeah.
Outside of Ramey and Hardy, the next closest, Michael Thompson, really good Bermuda putter. He's a guy that hits a lot of fairways, can be good on approach at times, decent course history. And then Russell Knox always seems to pop, but I don't know. He came out, he was 12th that 1 week, then he was popular, missed the cut on the number, then missed the cut on the number. So
Knox was the only guy in my player pool here that we hadn't mentioned yet. So he's probably gonna make it into my pool. We'll see how that goes. You don't need to get a ton of exposure to the 6Ks. I mean, obviously you've got McCarthy at 7,000. Guys that are strong plays like we mentioned in the kind of that mid 7K range. You want to take a shot on somebody like Adam Long in a GPP. Smalley grades out well. So I mean, those guys are all in the 7K to 7,500 range. So probably not super necessary. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, there's nobody above 11K. It's not like you're paying a super premium for anybody at the top. So even if you want to start your roster with Webb or start your roster with Connors or something like that at 9,900, you don't find yourself needing to go to too many punt level guys this week. Anything else that we may have missed before we get out of here?
No, I'm gonna miss talking about golf for the next 6 or 7 weeks. And yeah, as always, thanks for joining us. It's a lot of fun doing the show each week. We had another, user hit 120 grand last week. So shout out to him. If it can't be one of us, we hope it is certainly one of you.
They didn't do it with my picks last week. I'll tell you that. It was the week after, or the week before. There's a site called Daily Overlay that grades expert picks and stuff. And the week before, I got a notification from them on Twitter that 7 of my 8 picks graded out as A's. And I was feeling pretty good about that. So it was one of the best weeks I'd had in a while in terms of picks. And then last week was a total disaster, headlined by Hoffman withdrawing. But those are the breaks. You can't win them all. And yeah, it's gonna be disappointing not being here for 6 or 7 weeks. But as Noto knows, doing the NBA content and with football season still going strong, the grind gets a little brutal in the fall months. So sometimes from a content side, having a little bit of a break isn't necessarily a bad thing. It'll give you maybe a little bit more time to breathe, right?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I haven't had a notification from that Twitter account for a while, the Daily Overlay. So
horrible picks.
So maybe we'll get back on track this week.
I was second when I looked in their overall grades for the year. So unfortunately, last week isn't going to help me try to overtake the top spot. But still, it's been a pretty fun year. As always, enjoy talking golf and doing the show for all of you as well. And we've had, as Noto hinted at, we've had some people make some pretty big money over the last few weeks. So always great to see. And we head into the holiday season, wishing all of you happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all the holiday greetings that we can pass along, since we're not going to be here for the next 6 weeks or so. We hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back and better than ever in 2022 as we kick off the season as usual with the Tournament of Champions and the usual late winter schedule. So for Noto and our producer Eli, I'm Justin. Thanks as always for watching or listening. We appreciate it very much, and have a happy holiday season, everybody. Take care.